Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday evening to you all. I hope you guys are doing fantastic out there tonight. Had yourselves a wonderful Monday, and I hope you folks have been having a great start to your work week. Here to give you some information on multiple weather topics. The first one will be discussing this significant icing potential overnight into tomorrow across areas of the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes region. I think once you start to get into kind of like the Great Lakes region, I think it'll be more so snow. And we'll give you some information on that. We'll talk about the interior sections of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast as this winter weather will move into these areas after midnight tonight until our Tuesday. So we'll kind of give you some ice totals and snow totals for those areas of the country as we get into our Tuesday, into our Wednesday. And then we will discuss the flooding potential as we have two currents that kind of are working together to just provide a funnel of moisture into the southern areas of the country. In fact, you know, it's already doing so out there tonight and will continue to be the common theme over the next few days. We'll discuss how much rain could fall for your neck of the woods across these southern states. And then, you know, we're going to just talk about the pattern in general coming up. There's going to be multiple things we'll kind of discuss and what's driving this pattern. What am I seeing after this flooding potential? You know, kind of as we get into this coming weekend, early next week, I'm already watching maybe a winter storm potential for the Northeast. And then after we get into next week, like we start to get into the last 1 or 2 days of January, first several days of February, yes, we will go that far out in this video, things get weird. And I'll talk about what I mean. Models are struggling with what happens as we get into the first several days of February. So we're going to discuss that, take advantage of those timestamps. And yeah, if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like, and if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling. So you got all the rain that's continuing to fall across Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Louisiana, extreme eastern Texas. This will be the common theme over the next couple of days. And this is just a solid moist feed around this high pressure that's centered around this area of the eastern U.S. And man, we had a nasty ice storm overnight last night into this morning across Oklahoma, Missouri, places in Arkansas, and, you know, places like Oklahoma City and just south definitely overachieved as far as their ice totals. Definitely saw some crazy videos. Saw one video of a fire truck just doing a complete 360 and spinning around in a neighborhood road. Just wild stuff. So luckily we were beginning to thaw out in these areas and just a good old cold rain out there. Temperatures have warmed for the most part above freezing for most of these areas. Now, we had some weird, wild stuff happen in San Diego. Ron, you'll have to tell us about it, but I'm seeing some crazy video out of San Diego where you guys got a lot of flooding off this upper level low. And I think you got 2-3 inches of rain in San Diego, broke a daily record. So hope you guys are doing all right out there. I know I don't have a lot of people that tune in from that region, but we definitely had an overachieving rain event out there in Southern California. So yeah, that's what's going on out there. Just some scattered moisture across the Pacific Northwest, a little bit of flurry action in the northern tier of the country. Watches, warnings, and advisories. Let's see if we have any updates from this because I pulled this up about an hour ago. A lot of dense fog here in the gray, but these are just still winter weather advisories. There's been no upgrades to winter storm warnings. Remember, I told you this morning that I thought they would upgrade it. Some, you know, I'll admit when I'm wrong. You know, I'm not here just to toot my own horn, and I thought they would upgrade to winter storm warnings, ice storm warnings, and it turns out I think they made the right call. Some of these mesoscale models are not really dialed into these hefty totals anymore, but still a significant icing event for some of these areas for sure. So we just got a kind of a stretch of winter weather advisories that stretch all the way from like eastern Kansas all the way to the southern tier of New York. I mean, pretty much almost all the way to like Scranton, Pennsylvania. Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, Indianapolis, you know, Columbus, Dayton, Pittsburgh, you all have winter weather advisories. So, in the purple. So let's keep on going. Let's just go straight to the punch here. Let's show you the portions of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley first. So we'll start off right now. What we got falling out there right now as of around 5:24 Central Time, 6:24 in my time, and not sure if this is moving or not, but I guess it's not, but there it is. See the pink? That's mostly freezing rain. So around Lafayette, you got freezing rain. And if you look at this icon here, if we can click on it, it says icy sidewalks and driveways. So you are getting some ice in this region. No reports out of Indianapolis, but it's probably cold enough for some freezing rain. And we even have some freezing drizzle being reported here in northwest Ohio. So the radar will really fill in this area over the next several hours into the overnight hours. So it's pretty wild. They're just reporting rain in Minneapolis, just rain. So it really tells you that this ridge is beginning to flex, and the warm nose is really making its way all the way up into Minneapolis now. So, but let's take a look at what's going to happen into the overnight hours. So we'll start off this evening. Let's just go on and take it to about midnight tonight. It looks like just rain falling in Indianapolis. You go into northern sections of Indiana. Remember, when we showed this morning, this was showing more purple, a little bit further south. It looks like there's a little bit more warmer air that the models kind of struggled getting a hold of this morning, but are now getting a better hold of this. So this could be good news for Indianapolis. Maybe not as much ice, but this is a solid wintry mix of like sleet and ice, like in the middle of the night getting up to Detroit. Freezing rain begins to move into Chicago, Cleveland, and we keep this going all the way till about 3 o'clock in the morning. The orange, if you're wondering, this pinkish orange color, that's like a mixture of sleet and freezing rain, or maybe just sleet, but you're kind of getting an all-out mixture in Chicago. This is creeping up to Milwaukee at this point. Freezing rain in Cleveland, the middle of Ohio points north, freezing rain, Toledo, freezing rain. And you keep this going, and then you get a little bit more cold air in all levels of the atmosphere involved, and you start to just get all snow up here in Milwaukee, just snow here in south central sections of Michigan, snowing in Detroit based off the HRRR model as we're waking up tomorrow morning. But this purple is still all freezing rain, but you're starting to warm up now. And you keep going, and some of this, the moisture has really trended further north, in my opinion. It looks like it has. In Milwaukee, I think you're going to get maybe a quick inch or so of snow tomorrow morning. It's very possible. And then the warm air really starts to get involved, and it could snow pretty heavy. I could see this snow in like southern Wisconsin and then south central and central Michigan really overachieving. We'll have to see what happens. But as we get into tomorrow afternoon, everybody warms up, especially in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. It's going to be all rain in Kentucky. And then this system heads out, and then another system will begin to enter in, and there's still just enough cold air around and maybe still be a little bit of a freezing rain mix in these areas, but I don't think that'll be a big deal at all. But freezing rain totals between now and Thursday morning. They've dropped them somewhat, but some areas are still going over a 1/4 inch of ice. About 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch of ice forecast around Chicago area points west. Similar deal out here. Still a 1/4 inch freezing rain totals are possible in Illinois. And just, from Indianapolis points north, a good 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch of ice expected, but somebody's going to get a 1/4 inch. I think I saw where somebody got like 4/10 of an inch of ice in Missouri, or it was either Oklahoma. I think it was Oklahoma. I think Reed Timmer posted it. But, just widespread several hundredths of an inch to maybe a 1/10 to a 15th of an inch of ice here in northern sections of Ohio, especially northwest Ohio, where somebody could squeeze in 2/10. And a solid icing event of a 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch of ice here in the southern counties of lower Michigan is definitely possible. We take it a little bit further north up the road, and, I've already kind of showed some of these areas, but there's a snow. I mean, trying to creep all the way up to Green Bay tomorrow afternoon, snowing up into the northern sections of lower Michigan. You kind of have this line of snow extending all the way back into Iowa. So, I do think, back here in Iowa, don't want to leave you guys hanging out here. There's going to be kind of a band of wintry weather kind of flowing from south to north through the state tomorrow, especially eastern section of the state. By the time you get to about mid-morning, this is all snow in eastern Iowa and central Iowa, and I think this band will kind of fall apart. And I definitely think it could be kind of a wintry mix kind of day in Milwaukee. Doesn't look like the snow quite makes it to Green Bay, but I could see it getting to Green Bay. And then this heads on out, and then another push of wintry weather could make its way in. But this next push Wednesday is actually warm enough to just be all rain. A chilly rain in Michigan. So in the coldest part of January, coldest part of winter. So it's pretty wild. Snowfall from this between now and Wednesday evening. I mean, southern sections of Wisconsin, Janesville, maybe an inch, 2 inches of snow. This will be a wet snow, 1/2 inch to an inch around Milwaukee. We'll see what happens. But once you get around Detroit, points north, kind of tucked in up here against Lake Huron, 2 to 3, maybe 4 inches of snow is possible in this little corner right here of Michigan. Now you start to get into the northeast. I mean, we're starting to get some freezing rain, a wintry mix moving in as early as tomorrow morning across the southern section of Pennsylvania. I think all of the northern section of PA is getting some sort of wintry weather. The further north you are, if you're in the far northern counties, maybe more so snow. Central section of the PA, freezing rain. Pittsburgh, probably freezing rain. You're getting kind of a mixed bag precipitation sort of in Erie, And then you start to make your way. It's about midday Tuesday, and you're getting a little bit of snow all the way over here into Connecticut. I would not be surprised to see a little bit of some winter weather all the way into southern New England tomorrow afternoon. But, a little bit of cold air gets involved, a little bit more cold air aloft. It's, eroding that warm nose. Some snow begins to fall in Buffalo. Again, on top of more snow. Finger Lakes region, southern tier, some snow. Northern sections of PA, Binghamton, a little bit of snow starts to move in. And, we start to get into tomorrow evening. It looks like you got a rain-snow mix north of New York City into Massachusetts, maybe the more favored kind of higher terrain of southern New England. I definitely think there will be significant temperature issues as far as maintaining winter weather in these areas. But, check it out. Even down to the coastal regions of southern New England, you're starting to get more so snow down here. So we'll see if we, later tomorrow evening, get a little burst of snow and even a little wintry mix here around Scranton. And then another push of moisture comes in. We got to watch for these little overachievers because, this is the time of the year where even though you're well above average in the Northeast, even well above average in some areas in the Northeast is still cold enough for winter weather. So here it comes. You got snow moving into, it's starting to get too warm for snow. You're starting to get some significant snowpack melt in these areas, sort of in eastern PA and, western PA and northwestern sections of New York. But look, it's snowing pretty good up here in Watertown, the Tug Hill Plateau, Syracuse. Snow's moving into the Adirondacks, moving into western Mass. And then a little bit of light to moderate snow just continues as we start to get into the wee hours of the morning, Wednesday morning across New York State. And a little bit of just some snow shower activity kind of making its way through Vermont and New Hampshire. And we'll go all the way out to about Wednesday midday, and you continue. It's just going to be the next at least couple days is going to be kind of wintry across these areas. But each day you get deeper into the week, you get warmer and warmer. So you're going to struggle maintaining this. And, by the time you get into Wednesday, you're actually dealing with maybe more so ice than snow, even all the way up to the Canadian border. Somebody said, what about Toronto? And, Toronto's definitely going to get some snow, a little bit of wintry mix over the next couple of days. But I'll be honest, guys, I'll be completely honest. I don't even know exactly where Toronto is on the map. I can't remember if it's kind of up into this region or this region. I know it's somewhere into there, and I'm not embarrassed to admit that at all. But my folks in Canada are so nice, and one day I hope that when I can do this full time, and I feel like I could be successful with it, I can kind of branch off at least into maybe the eastern sections of Canada. I think that would be really cool. I think that I just need the time to really know where all the cities are, geographical features, and I got a lot to learn with just the U.S. So. But ice between now and, what is this, Wednesday evening, a light glaze, nothing substantial, but some areas could squeeze in 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch of ice. And certain sections of northern PA and maybe like the Poconos and the Catskills. Very possible snowfall from this. Most of it's up here in New York, and we'll actually just go a little bit further up. There's New York. Buffalo could get another couple inches of snow. Just 1 to 2 inches of snow is the common theme around the Finger Lakes and the southern tier region. You get into the Tug Hill Plateau, maybe 2, 3, 4 inches of additional snow. Higher terrain is going to be favored, but just a very kind of wintry first half of the week. But nothing is going to be substantial as far as snowfall totals. Just in general, 1 to 3 inches is the common theme across these areas. But even getting to Massachusetts, showing a little bit of snow accumulations between, probably tomorrow and Wednesday for Massachusetts. It shows almost everybody in the state of Mass and Connecticut and Rhode Island seeing at least a dusting of snow. So, most of you guys got snow on the ground up here. I don't know how much it's going to melt with this torch coming, which we're about to discuss, but, a little bit of snow is possible between now and Wednesday evening. So let's discuss what's driving the flooding threat. What's driving the torch? We'll kind of combine both of those things that we're about to discuss and kind of talk about what's driving it here. So the blue you see on your screen is lower pressure associated with more storminess, even cooler temperatures. And then the reds, the oranges you see on your screen, that's high pressure associated with typically more calm conditions. You can have a cold high and then just a ridge, those things. So you got the flow that goes around these two features that are different. We talk about this heavily in hurricane season. So if you remember that, it's probably gonna job with you a little bit with what I'm about to discuss. So we'll start off with Wednesday morning. First thing you'll notice is you have this upper trough of energy right here. Think of this as just low pressure. It's kind of like a storm system. And this is kind of chilling here. It's a little bit cut off in the mainstream of things. At the same time, you have this ridge that is continuing just to set up shop over the eastern U.S. Kind of move around a little bit, but in general, it's kind of anchored over this region. So if we kind of go back to this, what you got going on here, ridge, it's warming up, and you have a flow around this high that's kind of going like this, right? And then you got a flow around this blue, which is storminess, that goes like this, okay? So as these, currents are kind of working together, what happens? Well, you're getting, in general, a flow out the south. And what happens when you get a flow out the south? You get moisture that's pulled in out the south to the north. Therefore, this is bringing a lot of moisture into these regions, okay? Now, I would say at this time frame, which is Wednesday afternoon, it's probably going to be more so like that and like that. But same kind of deal. You're getting just a funnel of moisture that's riding in. It's even kind of eventually kind of going like that. It's kind of hard to explain, but, I try to explain it the best way I can here. But you continue to keep this going, and it's the same common theme. And you get kind of a re-amping of this low right here, and this fully cut off, kind of upper low, cut off low. And you continue to just get this feed. It just continues, except this ridging is shifting a little bit further to the east now. So that means you're probably getting this that's probably getting more like that. And eventually you're getting this rain all the way up into here. So you basically got two steering currents that are kind of working together to pull in a lot of moisture into this region. It just kind of continues, and then this turns into its own system in general, pretty much modified low, and then this continues, and this energy could feed into some cold air to the north up here. All right, so what does this look like as far as rain and snow? Well, it'll kind of show you a little bit better here. Watch what happens here. You keep this in motion. All right, and here it is. You see all the rain, the greens, the yellows, the orange right here, and you see how it just keeps on popping up right here. But, if you kind of back it up right here, not as much going on right here. It's kind of clear into tomorrow, and this continues. But as this ridge, here it is. There's that high pressure. The ridge is building all the way up into here, but there's the actual high pressure with rotation around this high like this. And look how this moisture is kind of rotating around this pretty large and, heavy impacting high pressure, if that makes any sense. And this is feeding a lot of moisture out the Gulf and to basically the entire eastern U.S. And this just kind of continues as this high kind of eventually weakens and sort of drifts a little bit further east and southeast. And then a totally new pattern kind of moves in for a period. We get a little bit of cold air that drops down. Storm track just kind of favors these cutoff lows that are just kind of drifting underneath the main jet. So because you're going to have a steady feed of kind of moisture into this region over the next few days, you got an increase in flooding risks. Now, in this red, you have a 40% risk, a moderate risk, a flash flood guidance being met within 25 miles in a given location. You basically got a 40% chance of flash flooding. This is in Shreveport areas of Louisiana and extreme eastern sections of Texas. And you still got the slight risk, which is that 15% risk. And then you look into Wednesday, a much larger moderate risk, stretching from extreme southeastern Texas all the way into northwestern sections of Alabama, going right through the heart of Mississippi and Louisiana. So this could turn into a big deal over the next couple of days. It really could. And you take a look at how much rain could fall. This is between now and Thursday evening from the National Weather Service. And they're going for anywhere from 4 to 7 inches of rain here in eastern Texas. That's a lot of rain, folks. Typical El Nino kind of stuff. And you look at the deep south. I mean, look at Louisiana. Going for 7 to 8 inches of rain. Jackson, you might get 7 inches of rain between now and Thursday evening. And it starts to drop off a little bit more the more east and northeast you go. But this is still a soaker coming in. This isn't winter weather this time for you folks in Tennessee. I mean, this is a big-time rain event. Rounds of rain moving over these areas. And, we just take a more broad look at this and look at the kind of the southeast. And, I mean, you're getting a lot of rain into Kentucky, too. 1 to 2 inches of rain. Southern sections of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, 1 to 2 inches of rain. And I don't think the really heavy rain pattern begins to start for the Carolinas until we get into Friday and the weekend. And we kind of look at the blend of all models for this region. And this is when we start to get a couple storm systems. And there it goes, increasing into Saturday. We'll take it all the way through about Sunday evening. And Atlanta, 3 to 4 inches of rain. Greenville, Spartanburg, same thing. 1 to 2 inches of rain in Augusta and Columbia. Around 2 inches in Charlotte. This will change a little bit. But Florida's not getting a whole lot of rain from this unless you're in the panhandle of Florida, like the western panhandle of Florida. So very rainy pattern setting up. And the flow around low and high pressure supports this. It really does. So what about this torch pattern? This meaning these well above average temperatures. Tomorrow, pretty much everybody in this frame is just about above average temperature-wise. Even in these areas that are in the 20s and 30s. That's above average temperature-wise for the 23rd of January. But, man, you get into Wednesday, I mean, you're starting to get to close to 60 degrees in Dallas. I mean, you're widespread 60s and 70s in Louisiana, the entire southern sections of Texas, 60s and 70s. Arkansas getting into some of your first 60s, 62 degrees in Memphis. That's going to feel like a heat wave after what you experienced over the last 7 to 8 days. 60s into Nashville. And, yeah, you're even starting to warm up significantly. I mean, your high temperatures are starting to get above freezing up here, which is well above average for this time of the year. We get into Thursday, it warms up even more, folks. We're starting to get into the 40s in Chicago, mid-60s in Nashville, Shreveport, Dallas. It's getting up over 60 in Little Rock. Around the Gulf coastline, you're getting into the 70s. And then we'd get into Friday, about the same. There's going to be some buffering, some changes, and then it starts to cool down a little bit more. What about my folks here in the eastern U.S.? Tuesday, tomorrow, still kind of a cooler day, but it's warming up across the deep south. A little bit of cold air damming here in the upstate of South Carolina and North Georgia and the western sections of North Carolina will keep you guys quite chilly. But, man, that cold air damming's fighting for dear life here. But it ain't going to be able to hang on too much longer. But you start to see upper 70s in southern sections of Georgia. And, man, look at Thursday. The thing that stinks about these warmer temperatures is it's going to be kind of cloudy and rainy. So, I mean, you're getting into like the mid to upper 70s in Columbia, South Carolina, Augusta, Savannah, and then you're going to get into the low 80s on January 25th in sections of Florida and Georgia. Someone might try to sneak in an 80-degree reading even in eastern North Carolina and South Carolina. Still another warm day for your Friday. It's going to feel nice. This is just your typical January thaw. It seems like it happens at least once a winter. And it seems like the last few winters, it's happened the entire half of winter. But, I mean, look how much you're warming up here in the Ohio Valley. And then we start to get into Saturday, still very warm. Sunday, you're still pretty warm, but you can see the cold air starting to come back down. And we start to go back to reality probably next week, at least for a period. So, looking ahead into like late weekend into early next week. I'm watching that feature, that cutoff low that I kind of talked about, and this is getting into Saturday afternoon. I want you to watch this. Got a shot of cold air coming down through Canada. The GFS says we need to watch out for some winter weather getting into Sunday across the Ohio Valley and the interior sections of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. And look at this back-end cold air catching up with this moisture for sections of the eastern U.S. In fact, we'll just go on and get a little bit closer here. We need to watch this system. This is going to be a hard one to forecast because its energy kind of cut off a little bit. It's going to be kind of a slow meandering system. Does it combine with anything to the north? It could. This is Sunday evening. All right, we're getting rain, snow, and then look at this. This is the middle of the night, Sunday night into Monday. Look at this heavy snow falling in southern New England. Snow falling in New York City. You're very close to rain, snow in Baltimore and Washington, D.C., which, by the way, Baltimore and Washington, D.C. have picked up more snow than like New York City so far. Look at this back-end snow into the mountains of North Carolina, Tennessee, that just basically the Appalachian Mountains. And then we get into Monday morning. I mean, we got a quick-hitting snowstorm for like Boston to New York City. And it could really crank up in southeast Mass. So this is just one run of the GFS. Then this heads on out. What about the Euro with this? Euro, same thing. Here's a system. It's cutting, for sure. No doubt about it. A soaking rain event across the Tennessee region, Kentucky. Here it comes. We'll just go on and get a little bit closer to it. Latest Euro, here it comes. Where's the cold air? Low cutting through Ohio. This will be all rain, more than likely. But look at this rain trying to change the snow back here. And then this really does like a little bit of a low transfer. This becomes a dominant low. This is way too warm for the Mid-Atlantic New York City, Long Island, and you just get left with a rainstorm, maybe some back end snow behind it. All right. So what about that signal? Well, the European ensemble shows, hey, there's a pretty solid signal about 5 or 6 days out for an interior northeast winter storm. Could this creep closer to the big cities? It could. The Euro says it could. So we'll have to watch this. This is a solid signal the later half of this coming weekend into early next week. We'll watch that. It's kind of I've been mentioning a couple times in the videos, the last couple videos, this is a very narrow window. This window could broaden though. All right. After that, things get weird. And it's going to be tough to explain this. But just like I was talking about this earlier in the video, the orange, the reds, things like that, the warmer colors is ridging. And then the bluer colors, the cooler colors is troughing. And that's lower pressure, storminess, coolness typically is associated with that. And we move this in time. This is why you're going to be torching across the eastern U.S. as we get to the middle to later part of this week. But this continues. There's that feature I just talked about that could ultimately end up being maybe a quick-hitting winter weather event. And there is some cold air that could pump into that system. But this is a pretty solid signal. Let's make sure we get this rolling again. This is a pretty solid signal for some sort of storm system for the eastern U.S. But it doesn't last long, or does it? It gets weird. At this point, you stop at about next Tuesday, one of the last 1 to 2 days of the month. You're getting this ridge that's somewhat favorable, but it's way too far into the central U.S. But you got this ridge. It's kind of building up into the central to basically central Canada, and basically built. It's not really rooted in the subtropics anymore, which makes a big difference, and that's going into a whole entire different ballgame. But typically when you see this low over Alaska, these lower heights, that doesn't usually bode well for winter weather really anywhere in the country. So what happens here is you continue to get this sign right here of troughing, and at least in the northeast in Atlantic Canada. This could keep storminess around. And then what happens here is we kind of get about 10 to 11 days out. We start to get a lot of storminess. See the bluer colors out west into the western U.S. And then it looks like we're about to get our energy feeder back going to the south. Now, where's our cold air supply? And that's a big question here. We stop it here. Looks like our active pattern to the south starting to crank up. You can't really see it here, but there could be troughing and cold high pressure over the northeast in this time frame, sort of like day 9 to day 12. That could introduce what we call a cold air damming scenario. And it's tough to explain, but basically it's when you have an anchored high pressure somewhere over Atlantic Canada, or even better, the northeast, and then you get some sort of low. Let's get all this other stuff off. That kind of goes like this. High pressure up here, cold high, funnels in cold air to this, low kind of screeching across. That's a terrible L. And then we could get some sort of winter weather across the eastern U.S. But that's so far out, it's tough to figure out. But you kind of keep this going, folks, and you can see the progression. In general, guys, what I'm trying to say is I think that we're obviously going to warm up significantly as we progress through this week that we're in right now. I think that in general, warmer than average temperatures will dominate the next 10 days. But I do think there's a window that we're going to cool back now in the eastern U.S. And then I think that we should probably warm up because you still got this ridge in place all the way up into North America. Well, all the way up into Canada, covering most of North America, still over sections of the central and eastern U.S. I think it starts to cool back down in the western U.S. after day 10 because of this stormy pattern setting up. But I really think that this pattern is just a moving feature. I really think that we're not going to stay in one pattern very long. But I do think we can have another warm-up the first maybe 5 days of February. But that warm-up could be skewed somewhat by a cold air damming event. I'm really watching that time frame. I really am. So after that, I do think once we start to get, and I don't really have anything to back this up, it's just what we're seeing. And I'll show you this. This isn't something that I typically show, But we look at the European weeklies. This is the extended. This goes out like 700 and something hours. But you can see the progression of the pattern if you get it past day 15. And what happens here is we get to about February 10th onward, we start to get this signal for intense troughing over the eastern U.S., and we start to see this ridge beginning to bubble up into Alaska. And we get a lot of energy showing up down here in the blue, which indicates lower pressure, storminess, feeding into this dip in the jet, which is a cold air supply. And this continues through the rest of February, all the way into March, folks. There's a lot of people got some chatter going about how they think that the last half of February is going to go out with a bang. And I think that's warranted. And you know, you back this all the way up. There's the warmer than average temperatures, and look how they kind of evaporate as we get to about day 20 to day 27. I know you're thinking, Mitch, that is forever away, and it is. But I feel like the weeklies did pretty well figuring out this last pattern we went through. But it really cools down the eastern U.S. I really want to watch this time of the year. Now, last thing we'll look at is, are we seeing any fantasy runs out there? We did overnight last night. And no, you know, we get, you know, to day 9, day 10, we see some energy flying around the northeast, maybe. And then we see this dip in the jet that's really just over areas of the northeast and the eastern U.S. And then we see something that isn't supported off the ensembles at all on the GFS. We see this trough extension dipping down with probably energy at the base of this with moisture that's still flying around down here. You see this cold high, and there it is, showing a little snow in Texas. And don't worry about the time frame. We're like into the first weekend of February at this point. And there's a lot of energy flying around down to the south with a shot of cold air. Are you going to get anything? Well, there it is. Shows a little bit of snow. My daughter's birthday, February 5th. Let's hope that happens. Shows some snow over the Carolinas. And that's why it's not a forecast, folks. It's just a weird time frame. After we get kind of into the first few days of February, things could change a lot. And then we see what looks like a lot of cold air dropping down. You see these blue lines, that's cold air. That's dropping down. So, you know, it's pretty wild. You know, I'll be honest, it was looking like, you know, all last week, people were talking about how February just looks awful now after everybody thinking it was going to be the golden month for winter weather. But over the last 2 days, things have started to trend in the other direction, the better direction if you're a winter weather fan. And, you know, you look at the final frame here of the GFS, and it's not really supported off this. But, I mean, it's much cooler than the ensemble, which, you know, I don't know what to think about that, honestly. So that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and y'all have a wonderful night.